All right, y'all, I've started a new organization, a new security firm, Wheatstraw Cloud Security and Consulting. I specialize in supporting small businesses and organizations in their IAM journey, building out security policy, all that fancy stuff. If you like what I do here on the channel, you can check me out here. As I trip over my words, I'm sure enough inspiring confidence in the community. Great. All right, y'all, I've started a new business, a new security firm, Wheatstraw Cloud Security and Consulting. If you like how I talk to you on the channel, if you like what we talk about here, please allow me to come in and help your small business, small organization in your IAM journey, your security posture. Would love to help you out, build out your security policy, help you with some disaster recovery, some continuity planning. And I'll teach you about these Microsoft security tools and how fun they are to use and all that good stuff. And I'm friendly. We have a good time. Come check me out. The website, wheatstrawcsc.com. You can read about it just below. All right, let's go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. I am Wheatstraw. We're here for another certification exam, a 10-minute exam CRAM. Today we're going to do the Copilot and Agent Administration Fundamentals exam. This is the AB900. It's a beta exam. It's really weird. It was a long exam for me, 57 questions at an hour to do it. And the worst part about it is they didn't even tell you what you got in the end. Like, you didn't tell you your score. You have to wait like 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we can pass this. We're going to do this together. Play the music. Hey, you're here. You're ready. This stuff is hard. Don't let anybody tell you different. This stuff is hard. It's hard for you. It's hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people. Just a lot of people know how to fake it and make it look like it's easy for them, but it's not. This stuff is hard. So when you're struggling through this information, know that it's hard. It is not easy, but you're here. You got this. Let's pass this test. You can do it. So this AB900 exam is very similar to the Microsoft 365 Fundamentals exam. That is the MS900. I made an exam cram on that. So if you go watch that exam cram, you're going to do great on this exam. And remember, the cool thing about the MS365 is that it's going to be sunset in March of 2026. So you get that exam, it doesn't expire. Fewer and fewer people have that, and you're going to look better and better. So you go watch that. I'll wait. So now that you know the MS900 material, let's talk about this AB900. So this exam is a beta exam. Remember that. So it's going to grow and change. It's not, the 57 questions I saw won't be exactly what you see. So you'll see a lot of different things, but I'm going to try to give you a broad overview of the things I saw that help you get some questions right on this exam. So one of the big areas I saw, and you probably remember this from another one of my CRAM videos, is these Microsoft AI principles. So remember those 6 principles. Let's talk about them now. Accountability is the first one. Humans should remain control. You need to be clearly accountable for the impact of this technology. Transparency is another principle. Users should understand how the systems work, what their limitations are, and the decisions they make, how they make those decisions. So that's important. Privacy and security is another one. The AI needs to comply with all the privacy laws and protect data, and make sure that data is not like there is no data loss based on this use of this AI. So it needs to really, keep that stuff secure. It needs to be inclusive, so it needs to be usable by a diverse range of communities. So people with all abilities should be able to access AI. It needs to be reliable and safe. That's another one. So it needs to perform as it's supposed to, as it's designed, and it needs to be able to do that even in unexpected conditions. That's very important. And finally, fairness. So it needs to AI has to avoid privileging one group over another, or avoid discriminating on a group based on age, sex, race, sexual orientation, all those types of things. So that's those Microsoft AI principles. Remember those. You'll get some of those questions right. Let's go. So there's a lot of SharePoint on this exam, and I guess that makes sense because SharePoint is kind of the backbone that Copilot is going to operate off of in an organization. So it's going to hold all the information for which Copilot is going to access. So remember that is what So that's what Copilot is going to use. And also remember that Copilot accesses that information based on the permissions that the user already has. So the user can't just ask Copilot for information that that the user doesn't have access to. So I can't go to Copilot and say, give me all the information on such and such unless I already have that. So remember that Copilot can't break that those user permissions. Remember those data access governance reports in SharePoint. So this is going to be really important for admin to identify those sites that are overshared. So remember that lots of oversharing, that's bad. Lots of that on this exam. So those overshared SharePoint sites are really important to get rid of before activating Copilot. So those data access governance reports are really good for doing that. And remember, again, Copilot can only access the content that the user already has access to. So you can't get around that. And let's see, what am I not remembering? So, okay, sensitivity labels. Sensitivity labels, site permissions, you're going to want to do that and review that before activating all the features around Copilot. You want to make sure that all of that stuff is in place, purview, all of that. You can, do a lot of that in purview. But anyway, you put sensitivity labels on those things, and that way Copilot knows what is and is not off limits for a user. And so all of that, those policies, Copilot will have to honor all of that. So remember those things. That'll get you at least 10 or 12 questions right. Most of this exam is on Copilot and agents, and those are different now, but they're going to be talked about together often. But Copilot and agents are mostly at this exam, so get ready for that. So Copilot is that AI assistant that's integrated all across your Microsoft 365 app. So you're going to see it in Word and Excel and Teams and Loop and SharePoint and all that stuff. And it's that LLM, it queries data from emails, files, and chats and OneDrive. Oh, and it uses Graph to query that information. So Copilot uses Microsoft Graph. It queries information from there and uses your organization's already your permission structure. So whatever permissions you have as a user, Copilot is going to give you access to information that you don't already have permission to. So Copilot can't bypass that permission either. It's a safety that's built in. So Copilot's responses are generated, via that prompt. Everybody, you type in your prompt, it's going to spit out something fancy for you. It's going to use your organization's data, or it can even use public web data if you give it permission to do so. So it can just use your organization's data, but it can also use the public web. So you build out Copilot. You use Copilot Studio. You can build agents and custom copilots in Copilot Studio. So when you think about Studio, think about agents more than just Copilot, but you can also do custom copilots in Copilot Studio. So Copilot for Microsoft 365, it requires Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 license, or Office 365 E3 or E5 license, Business Standard or Business Premium, and then you can get Copilot across all those buttons on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that kind of those fancy M365 apps. So also Copilot uses Entra ID for authentication. Remember, it's almost like an actual user. It has to authenticate through Entra ID in your tenant, and so you can use conditional access, can restrict your Copilot usage, and the logs for Copilot that can be accessed and reviewed through Microsoft Purview. So remember that. You can get compliance reports, you can get, use e-discovery, legal hold, insider risk management, information protection. All that stuff can be applied to Copilot. And remember those DAG reports, those data access governance reports. So those reports, they identify those public sites where everyone except external users have access, legacy sites with borrowed permissions, places where they're oversharing. You're going to see oversharing a lot. So you use those DAG reports to identify those sensitive documents that you don't want Copilot to give a whole bunch of people access to. So with Copilot, remember, I said this a few times already, Copilot respects existing permissions. So Copilot is not going to give a user access to information and give a user information beyond what they already have access to. Remember that. That's very important. You'll get 3 or 4 right answers just based on that premise. So you want to identify all your overshared SharePoint sites because you don't want Copilot to accidentally expose data that you weren't wanting it to expose. So you're really going to want to get a hold of that before implementing Copilot wide ranging across your organization. So remember, use those data access governance reports to identify those areas of data exposure. and use sensitivity labels in Purview. So this will restrict Copilot from using certain content. It'll prevent that sharing that you don't want to happen. And the data loss prevention policies, they'll block Copilot from accessing content or generating stuff that's with sensitive data. So it's really important to master those features before implementing Copilot, so the Copilot is not going crazy in your tenant. So retention policies, also you want to do those. So that'll help decide what Copilot can have, what's available to Copilot and what is not available to Copilot. So remember those things. You're going to get a whole bunch of right answers just on that. Let's go. So now we're going to talk about agents. Agents are different than Copilot. There's a lot of similarities, but agents are different. So, think about your agents is that they're task specific. They are automated. And Copilot is more of that general AI assistant that you see in Microsoft 365. So in Microsoft 365, they Copilot, it'll query data using Graph and all of that, and queries all those different, places like, your documents and SharePoint and all that kind of stuff. But, agents are built out of Copilot Studio. Remember that they're very much so customizable, while Copilot has plugins, but it's not as customizable. It's just kind of a thing that you get. It's the AI assistant, but you can really teach this agent to do and function as this very specific, almost like an extra person in your workplace. So you can customize it fully. They both use connectors, but agents use it more so than Copilot does, and they're all both governed by Entra ID in terms of those permissions that we're already talking about. And you use a lot of Purview and all of that stuff to again talking about those policies, those retention policies, those data loss protection policies and all of that. But really, Copilot, you control that through the admin center in M365, but with the agents, you do it all through Copilot Studio admin. So remember that. So, and licensing, finally, you need Copilot Studio licensing for agents, but you only need the Copilot for M365 for just regular Copilot. All right. So with agents, remember, agents are those task-oriented AI assistants, not just the general AI assistants like Copilot, and it's built out of Copilot Studio. So remember that. Agents built out of Copilot Studio, they have automated workflows, and they integrate with all your business systems using connectors, and they respond to user prompts, but again, it's very specific. They're trained to be very specific, not the general assistant. So it's a very specific AI workload. So maybe you've trained it to know a lot about HR, and so this HR agent answers all the questions in HR, all those random questions that it can answer, starts processes, can trigger different actions and things that happen in the HR department. So that's very specific. It's not like a general assistant for a user. It could be an agent could be built out specifically for an HR department or something like that. But it's also in the same way regular Copilot, it is managed, governance and security can be managed, using Entra ID for identity, because again, it's got to authenticate to Entra ID like an actual user, an actual person user. That it's, it sounds weird, I'm saying it out loud, but it authenticates to Entra ID. It respects data access and permissions. You're gonna see that question several different ways. So just know that you can't, like, an agent can't have more access to data and give something to a user than the user already has access to. So it's governed, and agents are governed by Purview and that data loss prevention and sensitivity labels and retention and all that kind of stuff. You can, like, an admin can restrict access to agents like they could to a particular user or something like that. They can control all the connectors, so you can have complete control over this agent, so it's not doing too much within your department. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's go. And that's it. We're done. You're ready. You got this. Stay confident in this exam. Come back. Let us know how you did in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Good luck.